Coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, it's Crossover Thursday. That's where we take a deep dive into the next opponent on the schedule for the Silver and Black, and that is the Indianapolis Colts. So my guy, Zach Hicks, host of Locked On Colts, will join the show to talk biggest storylines, biggest matchups, and game flow and score predictions. We'll talk all things Raiders and Colts Week 10 action coming up on today's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast, November 10th, 2022.
Just win. Just win. Just win. Just win.
The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won. And won. And won. And won. And won.
Thank you, Colts fans and Raiders fans, for tuning in and making this your first listen of the day. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts and your Las Vegas Raiders, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Colts and Locked On Raiders is presented by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Pick 2 to 5 players, and if they score more or less than their Prize Picks projection, you can win up to 10 times your money on your entry. First-time users can receive a 100% instant deposit match up to $100 with promo code LOCKEDON. That's prizepicks.com, promo code LOCKEDON. This is Zach Hicks here at the Locked On Colts podcast. I'm joined by your boy Q from Locked On Raiders. And, we were joking a little bit before this, before we started recording. If you told me before the season that this matchup would be the battle between, it might be two teams that might be picking like top 5 in the 2023 NFL draft, I wouldn't have guessed that. So we're gonna have some fun with today's episode, guys. And Q, since you're since I'm kind of leading it off here, I'll let you start off with the biggest storyline for the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, it's so funny when I look at these two teams, the Colts and the Raiders, I feel like that they're very similar. Now, I know that they kind of got to where they're at right now in going into week 10 of the NFL season different ways. They found ways to get there in a different fashion. But, man, you want to talk about two teams that are underachieved, right? I mean, I know when the Colts got Matt Ryan and, a couple other pieces, it's like, man, they're going to be a team that's going to compete for the division. When the Raiders picked up Devontae Adams, it was like, man, they're going to be a team that competes for the division. Well, not so much, right? So with the Raiders sitting there now at 2-6 after 8 games in 9 weeks, it's just the biggest question is why, right? They've lost 3 games where they had 17-point leads. So, 1, why are they having those collapses like that? And 2, why are they not excelling the way that they were expected to excel? Why are they not competing with the Chiefs? Why are they not competing with the best teams in the AFC? I mean, that's really the biggest storyline because there's so much firepower. And look, this is a team that went to the playoffs last year. So going into the season, Zach, I expected, and this was something that I said, and this is my own fault. I said, hey, they won 10 games last year and they had up and down roller coaster ride. So now you're kind of fully settled. You're calmed down. You have a new head coach in Josh McDaniels. He's a very strong offensive mind. You bring in Devontae Adams as Derek Carr's college teammate. Man, what can go wrong, right? Josh Jacobs, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. Well, Waller's injured. Renfrow missed a couple games. Devontae Adams and Derek Carr hasn't been everything it's cracked up to be. Josh McDaniels doesn't look like he's got a good, thumbprint on what the offense is supposed to look like. There's been so many question marks. And again, they can't hold leads, right? 3 games, they were up 17 points and found ways to lose. Against the Cardinals, they were up 20-0 at halftime. The Chiefs, they were up 17-0 at one point. And then last week against the Jaguars, up 17-0, lose the game 27-20. So really, it's a big question mark. The biggest, storyline is the big question mark. Why? Why is this team performing or underperforming at the level that they've done through 9 weeks so far?
Love it. And it's funny because the Colts are kind of the other way. The Raiders keep jumping out to these big leads and they just blow these big leads. The Colts have not had any leads this year until the final minute of games. I mean, all 3 of their wins, they did not take the lead until like a minute left in the game, or even less than that. Against the Chiefs, it was like 16 seconds left and stuff like that. So yeah, the Indianapolis Colts are struggling to even get leads. They're struggling to start games well, but they are kind of finishing them. Not in recent weeks, but they have finished them early in the season. But yeah, with the Indianapolis Colts, man, I could go with so many different storylines right now. But I think the biggest one is the new head coach, Jeff Saturday, coming from his cushy ESPN job to coach this dumpster fire of a season for the Indianapolis Colts the rest of the season. And I think the biggest story with that is, what is this going to look like? It's not just Jeff Saturday either. It's Parks Frazier, the assistant quarterbacks coach and passing game specialist. He's going to be calling the plays. He's never called plays in any capacity before. Jeff Saturday, coming from ESPN, has only coached high school football. It's the only time he's ever been a head coach. What does that whole process look like? Because I'm assuming it's going to be pretty messy. You got a coach who's never had to navigate an NFL sideline before, never had to get a practice schedule ready, never had to really be in those meetings as a head coach. And then again, a guy calling plays who's not used to the flow of an actual game, he's never done that in a game. How does that entire process look against a team like the Las Vegas Raiders, where, yes, they're underachieving, but they still have talent? It's still a pretty talented team. Like you said, if you're looking at this team on paper, Max Crosby, Devontae Adams, Josh Jacobs, I mean, this is a lot of star power on this one team here. They just haven't been able to put it together. And the Colts are kind of the other way, where, yeah, they have some guys that are playing well, but we've just seen a monumental collapse from this entire team, from the quarterback to the offensive line to the coaching. So yeah, the biggest storyline is, somehow does Jeff Saturday come in and right the ship for the Indianapolis Colts, a team, again, that is pretty talented. It's just that it's not been playing up to their talent. I'm very curious, and I think that's the biggest storyline for not only us covering this game, but for every single national media person, any Radiohead person. Like, it's a huge storyline for the Colts.
No doubt. I've been talking about it on my radio show all week long, because it's such a mystery. And like you said, what does it look like? And this is my thing. When it comes to Jeff Saturday, I know that he doesn't have that experience. I mean, he's been the high school coach and that was it. But I don't think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think it looks much different than what it's looked like, right? I think that he lets Gus Bradley be Gus Bradley because the defense is cooking. And I guess the biggest question would be Parker Frazier, how he runs things, how he, puts it together as far as calling plays offensively. But I mean, it's got to be the same playbook that Frank Reich has, and then they were very close together. So I'm assuming that those, it's similar. It's just the order and the repetition and the way it's actually done. But I think Jeff Saturday's biggest job will probably be for the Colts is to be like the biggest CEO, if that makes sense.
Right. I think what they're going for is to get their own Mike Vrabel in there. They're trying to get their they're trying to get their guy who is going to be in your face and he's going to be tough love on you all the time. I think that's what they're really going for, and that was kind of their change of pace. So we'll see if that works out. I know that's the biggest storyline everywhere this whole week. Right. And before we jump into our biggest matchups, guys, I want to tell you guys about Blue Nile. Whether you're looking to pop the question or have a milestone to celebrate, or want to let your love sparkle, Blue Nile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. As the original online jeweler, Blue Nile offers the largest selection of independently graded diamonds and pieces, priced significantly below traditional retailers. Blue Nile has helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring. Their easy online tools let you choose the diamond shape, size, and clarity, as well as setting style. Nile's bench jeweler will then help you handcraft her perfect one-of-a-kind engagement ring. Shop stress-free with Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All Blue Nile orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging. They also offer overnight shipping if you're in a rush. It's Christmas shopping time, guys. I have a wife. You want to get this jewelry right now. Go to Blue Nile. Make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use promo code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BlueNile.com, code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, code LOCKEDON. All right, biggest matchups in this one, outside of our own teams facing their inner demons in this game.
Right. That's going to be it. Yep.
What do you got? What do you got for your biggest matchup in this one?
That's a really good question. Man, I think that it's got to be, man, I mean, when you look at it, I see some offensively and defensively, but I think the biggest challenge for the Raiders is defensively if Jonathan Taylor is available. And I know on Wednesday he practiced in a limited capacity. I know last year the Raiders did a good job against Jonathan Taylor, but that could be the X factor maybe in this game for the Colts, with Sam Ehlinger as the quarterback. Maybe Jonathan Taylor could come help save the day for Indianapolis and make it a rough day at the office for the Raiders. So I'm going to say that my biggest matchup is the Raiders defense, and in particular that defensive line slowing down Jonathan Taylor. If he is out there, and I know Josh McDaniels, as we met with him on Wednesday, said, he expects Jonathan Taylor to play, so they're preparing for Taylor. I think that's got to be it because, again, he's the guy that can make make things go. And even last season, I believe he got 100 yards and maybe a touchdown or two, but it didn't seem like it was a wreck the game type style, right? It was 100 yards, great, but it didn't seem like it was too much for the Raiders to handle. He can be too much for any team to handle. So I think that it's got to be an emphasis on Jonathan Taylor slowing down the other weapons that the Colts do have offensively, because the Raiders defense has been on the struggle bus. I mean, it really has. It plays good for a quarter. It plays good for 2 quarters. It doesn't play good for 4 quarters. It's very inconsistent. So I think Taylor focusing on him. And then I also, kind of want to piggyback that and say the Raiders defensive line going up against the Colts offensive line, because look, Sam Ehlinger was sacked 9 times last week against the Patriots. The Raiders have gone 2 games in a row without a sack. So, and I'm not trying to sound disrespectful, but I look at this as one of those games where it's like, all right, get your sacks up, get your stats right? I mean, it's almost a Pro Bowl game where what their weakness is. Their offensive line hasn't done well. Sam Ehlinger got sacked 9 times. If you're Max Crosby, you're licking your chops. If you're Chandler Jones and you haven't succeeded much this year, and he has a half a sack, you're licking your chops. You're like, yeah, this is the game where I'm going to get my numbers right. And so, again, not trying to sound disrespectful, not trying to sound cocky, but it's just the name of the game. It's just you see a weakness and you exploit it. That's got to be it, man. It's got to be the defensive line of the Raiders going up against the offensive line of the Colts, and obviously slowing down Jonathan Taylor as well. So as far as matchups for you, what are you looking at?
Yeah, buddy. I everything goes to the offensive line with this Colts team. It was so much of an issue that I remember we were holding on to hope here with Locked On Colts in the first couple weeks, saying, okay, if this offensive line figures itself out, the Colts could be a pretty good team. They can maybe win the AFC South. Obviously, we've seen more issues kind of compound since then, but that was always the issue this season. It still is the biggest issue with this entire Colts team. And I'm looking at this matchup as a perfect chance, not for like the Colts offensive line to get right, because this Raiders front, like you said, Crosby, Chandler Jones, those are not 2 slouches whatsoever. I mean, I know Max Crosby had a phenomenal season, even if the sack numbers aren't, otherworldly. This is a chance for this Colts offensive line to kind of wake up a little bit. They have kind of been at the forefront of all the issues with this Colts team. Quentin Nelson said the other day in his press conference that he feels like some of Frank Reich's firing is on him and on the rest of the offensive line. I know Ryan Kelly said some similar things as well. These guys are paid as the highest paid offensive line in all of football. They need to start playing like it, and they're bringing in a guy like Jeff Saturday, who is, a Ring of Honor guy, who has had a lot of success, as an offensive lineman, who's going to come in, he's going to help with that group. And you want to see these guys come out motivated and play well. Now, I'm not going to say that's going to just turn around this entire play that we've seen in the offensive line. Like you said, 9 sacks last week against the Patriots. That's abysmal. That's abysmal. You can't have that in the NFL. I think it's the second most allowed in franchise history last week. So anything is probably better than that from last week. But I really want to see this offensive line just kind of have some pride. We have not seen much pride from this group this year. We've seen just a lot of poor play from guys who you don't expect it from. So that's the biggest matchup just for me personally. You got to see this offensive line get right. And then the other thing is just, can the Colts have any kind of passing game whatsoever this week? And that kind of goes with the offensive line, but also goes to Sam Ehlinger. We saw some good things in his first start against Washington 2 weeks ago. And then last week it all came crashing down. But again, second career start against the Bill Belichick defense where your offensive line's not blocking for you. You don't really have much of a chance. So I want to see if he can get the ball out of his hands, get it to his playmakers, get it to Jonathan Taylor, get it to Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman Jr. against like this Raiders defense, like you said, that has had some good moments, but it has kind of struggled this season. I'm really curious to see that with this Colts offense.
Well, I'll tell you what, I know Sam hasn't had a lot of success. I covered him when he was at UT, so I know what kind of quarterback he can be. But look, this isn't UT, this isn't college, this isn't the Big 12, this is the NFL. And so it's a grown man's game. And so he's learning on the fly. But I'll tell you what, and I know Raider Nation is kind of concerned about this. He hasn't thrown an NFL touchdown yet. He hasn't had a career game yet. The Raiders don't want to be that team, and Raider Nation doesn't want to see him all of a sudden go off in their building, right, at Allegiant Stadium on Sunday, and all of a sudden him have a career game. So that's why it's again, man, I really got to look at and focus in on the defense and say the defense has got to do their job. They can't allow Sam Ehlinger, who I do think is going to be a good quarterback at some point. I don't know if he's going to be a franchise quarterback. He might just be a backup at best, but I think he'll be a good backup because, he's one of those guys who's going to work really hard. He's athletic. We all know that. He's a guy, man. I respect him. He's a good leader, but you can't let that dude get comfortable, man. You can't let him get comfortable and him start thinking, oh, this is easy. I could do this, and let me start slinging the ball around the yard. And look, Davis Mills had a really good day against the Raiders for the Texans. And matter of fact, the Texans were winning in the fourth quarter, and then the Raiders went on a run. The Jacksonville Jaguars, I know Trevor Lawrence is a franchise quarterback, but he had it way too easy on Sunday, and that's why the Jaguars were able to win that game. And it's been too many times you see guys have career days. Andy Dalton carved up the Raiders when they played the Saints and they won 24-0. I mean, the Raiders defense, they need to really go for a gut check. Look themselves in the mirror at themselves and say, hey, what the hell are we doing, right? Are we going to be some chumps, or are we going to be some guys that are some champs, right? Play like some champs or play like some chumps? I mean, that's got to be the big question that the defense has, and they can't allow Sam Ehlinger to get comfortable, because if he gets comfortable, Jonathan Taylor will get real comfortable and make his job that much easier. So, I just kind of look at the defense and say the biggest matchup has got to be the defense going up against the Colts offense. And we know the Colts offense doesn't score a lot of points, but man, if all of a sudden they go over 21 points, I think they've only done that once this season. If they do that and Sam Ehlinger throws for 303 touchdowns, boy, it's going to be a bad day in Vegas on Monday. I'll tell you. I said this is funny, Zach, you'll appreciate this. I said, if Saturday has himself a hell of a day on Sunday, it's going to turn into a bad day on Monday in Vegas. So there you go. You can use that if you want. Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There you go. It all rolls together.
I just know if that happens on Sunday, if Sam Ehlinger comes out and looks like a franchise guy, my week is going to be hectic. Next week, it is going to be a hectic week.
My week will be too, but not in a positive way.
Right. Before we jump into our final segment here, guys, where we are talking about our score predictions and wrapping this whole thing up, there was one more storyline I wanted to get to with you, and I should have talked about this in the first one, but we had a big trade this offseason between these two teams. Yannick Ngakoue flipped for Rock Ya-Sin. And, if you're not familiar with my work, all you Raiders fans listening to this, it was my favorite player, my absolute favorite player. I loved him. I loved his career growth and how he went from a guy who was struggling when he was younger to a legit, outside corner. And, we're kind of watching from afar. All the advanced metrics are loving Rock Ya-Sin this year. How has he looked for you guys this season?
No, he's looked pretty good. He was injured and banged up early in the season, but I mean, once he came back, he's been pretty decent. I'm not going to say he's some shutdown corner, but he's solid. He's strong. As you very well know, he's got that wrestling background, so he's very physical, which is something that defensive coordinator Patrick Graham wants. Ideally, is to have someone physical on the line of scrimmage and be able to man up on defense. And so I think Rock has got an opportunity. He's still got something to prove. He's got these 9 games that are left to still prove that he can be a guy that's worthy of a contract extension, either with the Raiders or with another team. But I do think that he's brought a little something to the table. And, it's funny. I'm glad you brought up Yannick Ngakoue, because I remember when he did get traded, one of the things he said was, I'm going to show the Raiders when we visit Vegas that they made a mistake by getting rid of me, because he enjoyed being a Raider. And Derek Carr talked about him on Wednesday that, hey, Jan was my guy. So I really did appreciate his time that he was here. I think him and Max Crosby grew together really well. So I know that Yannick he's going to have a little edge to him when he visits Allegiant Stadium on Sunday. So that's a great matchup. That's a great storyline as well. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, I'm excited to see these two players this Sunday. But guys, coming up, we're going to talk about our score predictions. But first, I want to tell you guys about Bet Online. BetOnline.net is your #1 source for sports betting info, stats, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there. From football to basketball to soccer and esports, we've got it all at BetOnline.net. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those on BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting fix. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, jumping into our score prediction. Q, it's been a crazy week for me. I haven't even had much time to even think about this game. We were saying it
You're
on
still
yesterday.
trying to figure out who's calling plays, man. You're still trying to figure out a 30-year-old who ain't never called plays, what he's going to do, let alone come up with a score prediction.
Right. We were talking about the end of today's podcast. We were like, oh, yeah, they play this week. This isn't like the middle of the offseason for us.
Right.
But you probably put more thought into this game than I have. What's your score prediction for this one?
It's tough, man, because the Colts, as you very well know, man, they have a strong defense, and the Raiders know the Colts defense very well, as they know defensive coordinator Gus Bradley, who was here in Vegas a year ago. So, I mean, that's the one thing that I can say the Colts have going for them is that solid, strong defense. They're really keeping them in every game, right? And so the Raiders have the firepower with Devontae Adams. I don't know if Darren Waller's going to play. He's missed 3 games in a row. I'm expecting he's probably going to miss again, but that's just my gut feeling. We'll see. He was practicing in a limited capacity on Wednesday, so we'll see what happens the rest of the week. But I don't know, man. It's so tough to call it. I think that the Raiders are going to show their ability to score. Every team that they've gone up against, I can give them credit for this. Every team they've gone up against with a really strong defense, they've done some good things against, right? They put 30 points up on the Broncos. They put up points. The Houston Texans actually did a really good job with their defense, and they put up 21 points just in the fourth quarter on them. So, I mean, I think that they can score. Now, I know Gus Bradley's going to make it difficult on them. I think the Raiders will be able to score. I just know that the biggest struggle will be, can they stop the Colts from scoring? And the Colts have really stopped themselves from scoring all season long. So honestly, and it's funny, I did a podcast yesterday about it, and I didn't want to sound disrespectful, but I said straight up, I don't think the Raiders have any business losing this game. Not saying that they can't lose the game. I just don't think they have any business losing the game. I think that, by all rights, they should host the Colts. And, hey, Jeff Saturday, it's great to get your first start, but your first, coaching experience. But this is an L for you. That's how it should go, but that don't mean that's how it's going to go, because this is the NFL, and we all know how things go. And the Colts have beat the Chiefs. They've, played really well. They beat the Broncos in that overtime game on Thursday night, where it was really ugly, but it was back and forth, strong defenses. So it's like man, you're talking about a team that won 3 games and a team that's won 2 games. So it's so difficult to justify and say what's going to happen. I'm going to say that the Raiders are going to put up 24. I'm just going to say 24 points they're going to put up. I know they only scored 20 against the Jaguars last week, but I just think that they find a way to keep their foot on the gas a little bit in the second half, and score at least 7 points. I think they'll put up at least 17 in the first half and put up 7 at least in the second half. So I think that they win 24-20. I don't think that they have any business. Honestly, Zach, I don't think that they have any business losing this game. Now, they might, because they found ways to lose other games that I didn't think that they should lose. But with everything going on with the Colts, like you said, man, you didn't even realize that there was a game being played this week. I mean, this is in Indy. It feels like this is an off-season storyline, crazy stuff going on instead of a game week. So I just feel like in the mental capacity, it's going to be tough for these guys to get up. But that's why they hired Jeff Saturday, because he's the guy that's going to, in charge of getting them fired up. So I'm going to roll with 24-20. The Colts lose the game. The Raiders win. But, man, just like I just fumbled on it, the Raiders can fumble it as well on Sunday, and it'll be a long week for me here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, but it'll be one of those weeks. So what do you think the score prediction is going to be?
Buddy, I appreciate you every time just being like, I mean no disrespect, and I
do, because it sounds almost like cocky and disrespectful, and it's not at all ever intended to sound that way. I hate that.
I know, but like, it's hard not to sound disrespectful talking about the Colts after this whole week. I mean, if you're a team that's seeing this team come in to play against you, it's like, yeah, the defense, you got to respect the defense. You got to respect Gus Bradley.
Right.
I don't know if there's anything to respect on the offense right now, or the coaching or anything like that. Like, until we've seen it, this is the first time. So maybe Jeff Saturday and Parks Frazier are the truth, and it just is a blowout victory. But right. I do feel very happy that you gave the Colts 20 points in this one in your prediction. That's actually very, very generous. So no disrespect taken whatsoever. I'm going to go 19-10 Raiders as victory. I think if you guys have Daniel Carlson in fantasy, I think it's going to be a great week for him. I have him in fantasy football. It's been my guy for years now. I dropped Zeke Elliott to keep Daniel Carlson during my bye week. So that's how much I like Daniel Carlson as a kicker. And you guys are, I hate kickers. So that's one thing right there. But no, I think this is going to be a game where, yes, the Raiders are going to be able to move the ball. They have so much talent on that offense that even with the Gus Bradley defense playing so well, Devontae Adams is hard to control. Derek Carr has his good moments. Josh Jacobs is a good player. Hunter Renfrow had a lot of great success last year against Kenny Moore in this matchup. I do think that the Raiders are going to move the ball. I just do think that this Colts defense is so talented, they're going to hold in the red zone and going to force a lot of field goals. And honestly, against this Colts offense right now, with how poor the offensive line is playing, with a young quarterback, with a new play caller, 19 points is probably enough in this one. I don't know if the Colts can get even past the 10-point mark right now. There's just a lot of messy parts to this Colts offense. So I do think it's going to be kind of a slugfest. Not as bad of a slugfest as that Broncos and Colts Thursday night game a couple of weeks back. But
I remember.
But it's going to be a sloppy one, I think. And I think that the Raiders just have too much talent across the board. They have, for a 2-win team, I think they have more cohesion than this Colts team right now, which is crazy to say. But I'm going to go Raiders 19-10. But like you said, the NFL is so weird. It is the weirdest sport. Like, most games are decided between one score. I think Adam Schefter put it out the other day. It's like 75 games this year, but have been decided between one score. It's like the most in a 9-week span, that we've had in the NFL. So the margin for error is so short or so small. And, it's weird. Jeff Saturday is a horrible, crazy story, and it's weird. And it's just weird enough for the Colts to get a victory over a 2-win team.
Right.
So it's hard for me to guarantee the Raiders are going to beat the Colts, but I don't know, man. There's so much going on with this. Like you said, if Saturday has a good Sunday, then it's going to be a horrible Monday for you and a great Monday for us because it's going to be hilarious and fun for us.
No, it will. And it'll be such a horrible Monday for me that it'll be hilarious as well. I mean, I'll have to laugh at the same time just because why not? What else is there to do? But you know what? I mean, the thing about it is for the Colts, I mean, hell, they're still in second place in the division, right? I mean, even though they only got 3 wins, going back to your point of the weird season and the weird records and the weird scoring, I mean, they're in second place. The Raiders, at least, I mean, they got 2 wins. They're in last. I mean, the Colts, they're in second. So a couple Titans losses and a couple Colts wins, and all of a sudden you're looking up and Jeff Saturday sitting in first place. I mean, that would be nuts. Absolutely nuts. I don't even want to start thinking about that, but there you go. That's where we're at.
Cute, buddy. We got the famous playoffs rant here in Indy. I don't know if we're gonna get. I don't know if we're gonna get playoffs. Playoffs. I don't know. Right. I don't see it, but I think that's all we got for today, guys. Thank you for tuning into this crossover episode with the Las Vegas Raiders and Indianapolis Colts. If you guys are still here watching these shows throughout the year with these bad teams, I respect and love all of you. So make sure you guys are following us there on social media at Zach Hicks 2. And what's your social media account there, Q?
At your boy Q254 on Twitter. At your boy Q254. You can holler at me anytime.
Perfect. And make sure you guys are following us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And thanks again for making Locked On Colts and Locked On Raiders your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. We'll see you guys after the game.